Do you want to learn how to get started with Swift testing in Xcode 16? This is a brand new feature that launched this year. It has some quirks, so it's a little bit different, but it also has a lot of benefits that can make it easier to test and sort of see what is different in your unit tests. So let's get started with that. We're going to take a look at this rounding app. We're going to play around with just adding some basic tests just to get you the feel for it. So this is picking up from my last video, which I talked about testing floating point numbers, which behaves a little bit differently. So in XC test, we had the XCT assert equal with an accuracy parameter. We don't get that same level in Swift testing. Instead, we have to default to the numerics framework using a SPM package called Swift Numerics from Apple. So we can get the same type of behavior for testing approximately equal. Okay, so that's one way that we can work around that. Now we're going to take a look at some of the other benefits that we get when we're working with Swift testing and when we're running these different tests. So I've got this project configured so that it is only going to run our unit tests that we have here. We're going to go ahead and add another test function. So we can just do the @test macro. And let's actually give them both some names, and let's clean this up a little bit. So this is going to be tests rounding behaviors with accuracy. Okay. So we're kind of moving away from having to always have every method start with test. That was something that you had to do in the past. You always had to write test for it to get picked up. If you didn't write test before, and if I just get rid of some of those, you'll see that the little diamond disappears. It's no longer picked up as a unit test. So that was a critical thing for determining what a test is and making this diamond appear and making it accessible for the testing framework. Now we don't have that. We use the test macro with the testing framework instead of the XC test framework, and we can call it whatever we want. So in this case, we're going to call this playing with tests. Async and throws are just going to give you access to async and throw capable methods. If you don't have async, this is something I discovered. If you don't have async on the method name, you won't see async functions listed in the code completion, which can be confusing when you're in a code interview and stuff is not there that you expect. So keep that in mind. It's helpful to have that there. Okay, so I wanted to show some of these tests. This is using macros, and it's supposed to give us some more expressive behavior. So based on this guide over on the left, this is the new direction for testing in Swift. I'll have the link down below. And then if you want access to any of this code as a starting point, I do have a link for that. That's going to be down below as well so that you can get access to this same source code. All right, and that's for both part 1 and part 2, which is this one. So the testing sort of shows you the influences and talks all about so many different things, a new direction, and there's a lot in here, and I'm not going to cover half of it, but we're going to kind of focus on some of the things that you can do with these tests. So we could write expressions like this one, x is equal to 2, and then expect x is less than 1. And so what's cool, this is sort of double-edged, I would say, is it will figure out what these values are, figure out what these values are, and then it will give you the result. So not only do you get the expression evaluated, but it will look at the parts and tell you what's going on. So if we go ahead and run this one unit test, we look at our output, we're going to see that the expectation failed. So this is saying that x was 2 and 2 is not less than 1. And if I hit show, that just gives us a little bit more insight here. So it's saying 1 is the other parameter that we were testing against, and the expression is not true. So to make this pass, we would have to do something like x is 0. And if we go ahead and run all of our unit tests, we'll see that this passes. So it's looking at both of those parts. And again, you can put it back to sort of see how the output's going to look. it's going to show you what the current value of X is, and then it's going to say that this expression is not true. So that's kind of cool. Where you can run into trouble, that I've run into trouble, is if you start doing complex equations, the automatic macro stuff can get a little bit messy. So I don't know if I need to have like another variable here and say that like this is Y, or if I have to do like a function call. I've had situations where like you think you can just write normal code, but since it's doing some special things as a macro, ideally you're going to want something like this to be a result variable. So just make sure that you have your expected value, and then we can just paste this in here. So something about when this becomes more complicated, the compiler will complain about it. And so that's where I'm just going to recommend that if you're doing any kind of calculations, you want to have one value and one value. Don't have two separate expressions that get evaluated, because the compiler gets a little bit upset at times. All right. And then the other thing is we have two types. We've got expect and we've got require. So sometimes you want the test to keep going. And in this case, I think if we had multiple tests, these are all going to run. Now, if I make this so that this fails, let's make this 200, running the same test, we're going to get 2 failures here. So if you want to get multiple failures, that's where the expect is useful. But in some situations, you want to require things to fail. So let's do another test here. And in here, we're going to create X and we'll make it optional, just like Apple is demonstrating. We'll have some default value. Then we're going to have Y, which is another optional string. We'll set this initially to nil, and then we can do some kind of expression. Do I need to write the try? That's what I'm not sure about. If I just do require some condition void, I think they're just demoing something here. So if we require this, and then we require this, this is actually going to give us a value back. Oh, so this gives us an unwrapped version of it. Interesting. Okay, so when you're writing tests, a lot of times you want to unwrap something so that you can use it later on. They're not really demoing that functionality in this test. So if we were to say let X unwrapped, just as an example, is equal to this, that's going to give us access to this value. I like the idea of Swift testing, but some of these errors are like, this is mad confusing, like seeing this type of stuff appear, and that's because of the macro stuff. And let's say we need to do some kind of calculation and say, let Z is equal to X unwrapped times 100. And then if we need to then do an expect that Z is equal to, in this case, 1,000. And let's use that underscore, something like this. And I don't know what I did here. Is it not like that? Oh, I keep messing this up. I'm so used to writing XC tests. Okay, let's see if I can fix my typos. And then it really doesn't like that I'm not... Okay, let's fix this expectation up top. Oh, this is super weird. Okay, so it's not letting me build because of this. So we do need a try keyword. That was... I guess it makes sense that it would throw. Let's rebuild our tests. So without that try keyword, it's super gnarly. I like the idea of Swift testing. Anything dealing with macros does bring a little bit of complexity here. But the nice thing is I can now work with an unwrapped version of this. So previously, we're working with an int. X is a optional. And if I want to just make my code read easier, if a certain API gives me back something, and I just want to make sure that it's a valid value, that's where this require keyword is beneficial. Is that looks like that's the only thing that's meant to, that's what it's meant to do. Okay. So that's how we can do some kind of calculation there. Let's play around with some other stuff that you can do with this. And let's do some array testing. So in here, we could create an array and we could populate it with some values. And then we could say we have another value and we want to determine, does this value exist in the array? And so we can use the expect, and then we can say, does A contains another value? And so here we can pass in B. And then if we go ahead and run these unit tests, we can see that no, it does not. And so again, it's going to give you the similar output that Apple is showing here. It's going to show you what A has, and then it's going to show you what its B value is, and that sort of helps you understand if it exists. Let me just comment this out because we're not going to use that at this point. And then next up, we can do stuff with arrays where we can see if they're equal. So let's make another array. So let's call it A prime, and we'll put in 1, 2, 3. And then let's just expect A is equal to A prime. We could run this unit test, and it is going to be testing against that. And okay, so this one's failing because 7 is not there. So let's go ahead and insert 7. And if we fix that one issue, now we're going to have a new issue where these two arrays are not equal, but it will show us the values, and we can compare those. And this is a little bit less gnarly than it was, at least my first impressions are, this is a little bit less gnarly error messages of what's actually going on and what's actually missing or what value is not there. So if I hit show, what's it going to show us? It's going to show us that there's 4 elements. We can expand the elements and you can sort of see them. Now, if I were to change the order here, we should also see an issue. So if I put 3 in the front and we run this, we're going to have 2 failures. 7's not in the list, so let's add 7 to both of these. And we're going to see that order does matter when we're doing a comparison with our arrays. So that's a little demo of playing around with Swift testing. You can play around with these values if you want. I'll just comment out one of these so that you can play with that. And let's try and just get our test to pass. Command U to rerun our test one more time, and we get all of our successful tests. So that's a little bit about playing around with Swift testing. This was the first day that I played with the require keyword. It didn't work like I expected. Just reading about it here, I was a little confused on what it does. So it appears that require is all about unwrapping optionals. I thought, and maybe it works for both ways. So let's just test one more thing. Try require. Can I do a comparison here, or is this only for unwrapping? So if I said 2 is equal to 7. Okay, you can do expressions in here. So it looks like it's multifaceted. Maybe it's because of how we wrote it. It wasn't a Boolean expression, so it's doing some kind of voodoo magic. Like, so that makes me wonder if I have an optional value. So let's say x is equal to nil, and then I say expect x. What does that do? Okay, so in this case, I would have to write not equal to nil. And in this case, it's a constant, so let's change that. But this way, we could have we could still have an expression like this. Okay, so that's going to fail because x is nil, and it's saying that we shouldn't be nil. I'll just comment that part out. And now it's going to complain that we're not changing it. Cool. So that is playing with Swift testing, just getting used to how it's working. Require allows you to unwrap values, but it also allows you to early exit if a condition is not met. And so other tests are not going to run. I will say the error messages are a little bit gnarly with the macro stuff. If you're writing the code wrong. If you've got valid code, then the test output looks a lot cleaner. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this testing video. And I don't know what's coming next, but it'll probably be something about Swift UI design. I'll see you in the next video.